Good morning, Julie. Welcome to Rita's Sourdough Starter Morning. I'm going to show you how to do your starter, how to feed it, which typically is supposed to be done once a week, but I don't actually do it that often because my starter is quite healthy. So I can leave it actually for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Sometimes I've left it for a month and it's fine. So today I'm going to show you what I do and how you are going to do your own starter. So typically I take it out of the fridge, my starter, this is mine here, and I pour off half of it into the compost, and then I begin to feed it with flour and water, equal amounts of flour and water, stir it up, and then leave it out for the day so that it starts to get all active and bubbly. What I've already done today is, instead of pouring off half, I've actually poured some into this jar, about 100 grams of it for you, so that I will then be feeding mine and yours today. And once they are both active later in the day, you will be able to take yours home and I will be able to put mine back in the fridge. Okay, so I'm going to now put the starter that I've worked out for you, which is 100 grams, onto the scale. And I'm now going to feed it 100 grams of flour so it's equal amounts of starter, equal amounts of flour. And then I pour the water in. And then I mix up your starter. Let's mix it up. Until it's kind of like a pancake kind of consistency. Make sure it's all mixed up. And sometimes if you want, you could add a bit more water, but I think that it's good that it's a bit sticky. And there is your starter. So then you're going to leave, I don't put the lid on really tightly. So I use these jars here, and I really just hook it like that, but I don't like close it completely, so there's a tiny, tiny bit of air coming through while you're leaving it out. And I just leave it on the counter. And by later today, it should start looking bigger and healthier and a little bubbly. And once that happens, you can put it back in the fridge for another week or so. Or if you're going to use it for making bread, that's a whole other step. And we'll do that next time. Bye, Julie.
And
hi, Julie. Welcome to video number 2, which is making the leaven the night before you plan to make the dough. I actually got my hair done today. I'm drinking your lovely wine. I don't have my pajamas on, so I'm all set to show you how to make your leaven. Okay, so the first thing I did this morning, I got my starter activated again, so it's all ready. And the first thing I'm going to do is pour some 200 milliliters of warm water into a bowl. And then I'm going to add, it says to add a tablespoon of your starter. I just take a big spoonful of it. Sometimes I add a bit more. You know, really it's just about getting this all activated as well. Excuse my fingers. And you stir that up. I might add a little bit more. Sometimes it's just, you can see how active it is, like it's really light. And I should have a paper towel for my finger. Excuse me. So now what I've done here is I've measured out 100 grams of the white bread flour and 100 grams of whole wheat bread flour, which I just got at Bulk Barn. And so that's 200 grams altogether. And I add it into the water. And you mix that up. And I did try to skip this step once to make the bread, and it just didn't really work out. So, and people have different ways of making sourdough. This is the recipe that I use, and it just seems to work really well. So, anyways, as you can see, it's like really kind of stringy and not that moist, but that's okay because it's gonna start getting activated overnight. So I'm making this like later in the day, and I'm gonna leave it out. And you actually cover it with a towel, and it won't be until tomorrow afternoon that I will start to make the dough, and that'll be video 3. Hi Julie, it's me again. Welcome to my sourdough kitchen. This is video number 3. So this is where we're gonna make the dough. And as you know, we made the leaven late yesterday, and now I'm bringing it over here, and you will see that it's pretty fluffy. So what we're gonna do is we're going to mix the leaven, the flour, and the warm water together to make our dough. Bring out 200 grams of the leaven onto the scale, and okay, 207, whatever. Okay, so now I'm going to pour the warm water into this big bread making bowl, and I'm going to add the leaven to it. You can test the leaven in advance to see if it's like going to float. I mentioned that in your notes, which you probably have read by now. And so we're going to mix this up. Stir it up. And I've already measured out the flour. So we're putting in 900 grams of the white bread flour and 100 grams of, I use whole wheat bread flour. The notes you have says multigrain flour, but I haven't actually found them yet. So, and then I'm adding the flour that I've measured out, and then with your clean hands, you are going to give it a mix. And actually, this is a bit of a 2-step process, because we're going to cover this up, and then 40 minutes from now, we are going to add the salt with a little bit of water. So you can see it's really raggedy. You kind of want to get it pretty mixed up, like that. So I'm going to cover the, and you know, there's leftover leaven, which this is where they say you can actually use it to make sourdough pancakes or waffles or whatever, and you have to add some eggs and whatever, but that's another story. Okay, So I'm gonna wash my hands, but I'm gonna cover this with the towel and leave it for 40 minutes. And then we'll get to the salt. Okay. Okay, so now we're gonna add the 4 teaspoons of sea salt to 50 milliliters of warm water. Mix it up as best you can. And then we're going to add it to the dough. And then mix that up. It starts to feel a bit more like dough than like stringy, dry, whatever. This is a great bowl that my sister bought Ken because he said he was going to make bread decades ago. Anyways, I'm glad to have it. So, okay, so that's that. And now for the rest of the evening, I'm going to be coming in. This will be covered, and then every 30 minutes, we're going to stretch and fold the dough. Okay, so I've gone through the folding and stretching about 5 times over the course of 2 or 3 hours. And then I let it sit for about an hour and a half, just so it can get bigger. And now we're going to move on to what they call the bench rest. Okay, so I'm rolling out this pastry mat, and I'm using rice flour and sprinkling it on here before I put the dough down. And now I have to scrape this onto their mat, onto the mat, and then I'm going to divide it into 2 balls. Gotta get some rice flour on here because it's very sticky. It's very sticky. So I'm just putting light rice flour on it because it's very sticky. Very sticky. Okay, and now I'm gonna cover them with the towel and let them rest for 30 minutes. Okay, so final stage until tomorrow when we make the bread. I'm going to fold these up like an envelope, flip them over, and put them in these bread baskets, which I will be putting some rice flour in so they don't stick, like so. And put some on bread as well. So when you fold it, closest one to you, like that, into the middle, on the side, over, other side, into the middle, and lastly, the side furthest away into the middle, and then you are going to plop it into here. Next one, same thing. Side closest to you, side, side, other side, flip it over into this basket. I don't know if you have these little bread baskets, but they're very handy. So I'm gonna put these in the fridge, and they will be in there overnight. And then in the morning, I'm gonna bake the bread. Good night. Morning, Julie. So we're gonna bake our bread this morning. So I pulled it out of the fridge and just gonna dump it out like this. On here. And I forget what this is called, but it's like a razor blade thing. And just cut this on the top. You know, you've probably done this before with something. I've put the oven on to 500, and then it's gonna go down to 450. And I've heated the Crosette container up in the oven. So it's hot. And then I'm just gonna drop the bread into there. Lid on. And this is going down now to 450. So it bakes at 450. In the oven. And I'm going to time it for 20 minutes. And then after 20 minutes, I'm going to take the lid off and bake it for another 20 minutes. And then I'm going to brush the outside of the bread with butter, melted butter. And that's okay. Drum roll. Gonna pull this out, this baby out. It's kind of a funny shape, but that's okay. And then I'm gonna put this back in, heat up the oven to 500 again for the next loaf. And now I'm just gonna brush a little bit of butter on the outside, just to soften up the crust a little bit. Ta-da! Good luck, Julie. You can share it with Linda too. I probably should have when I gave her baby. So, okay, good luck.